Hi HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners 5 days a week. Today, we're very lucky to be joined by Jill Katz. Jill is the Group Vice President of HR over at Macy's. Jill, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I am great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. Jill, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
Sure, happy to. Well, I should always start with what's most important, which is my family. I am the proud mom of an 11-year-old girl. My daughter's name is Lexi, and my son Benjamin is 8, and happily married to an amazing guy named Josh Katz. I fell into HR completely by accident before HR was even really a field. When I graduated college in a year that I can't say out loud, just about 2 or 3 years ago, I was part of an organization and I was on the sales and account management side of the business. And back in those days, when people graduated from university, there were jobs falling out of the sky for everybody.
Really?
And it was really quite a different type of world at that time. And so this company did an annual recruiting event where we flew in top talent from schools around the country in the US. And we spent 2 or 3 days sort of wooing them and trying to get them involved in our company. I was a sales assistant or account manager there, and I raised my hand to the HR department and I said, this seems like so much fun. I would love to get involved in this recruiting week. Can I help? And they said, sure, we'd love you to help. Well, I got involved and I helped, and I happened to recruit more college grads to the company than the whole HR department did.
You upset someone at the same time, didn't you? You made someone look bad. Well done.
I don't know. And so I said, I think maybe there is something to this. And so I immediately went to the head of HR of that company. It's a conversation, those moments in your mind and your career that are frozen forever. And I said to her, I think I want to come into the HR department. I love what you're doing and I would like to do it. And she said to me, absolutely not. No way. We need you to stay on the client side of the business. And so that was the first impetus in my career to make a move. I went and I interviewed at a lot of companies, and I got my very first HR job as the HR coordinator to the CHRO of Merrill Lynch. And it was unbelievable. Since that job, which landed me working directly with the head of HR at a very young age, I have had an amazing journey of working with so many talented people in so many companies. I have been in media, I've been in entertainment, I spent a nice amount of time in digital and technology, and then through relationships, which is a lot that I'll talk about today, I fell into retail. And so I've been in fashion retail product development for the past 13 years.
Wow. Very interesting story. Very interesting story. So aside from making someone really look bad by recruiting loads of graduates, what is it around HR that you thought you really connected with?
At that time, what I connected with was finding what drove people, what they were interested to do on a daily basis, that they could come and help drive a company forward and help develop themselves. And I also have always been told, and I have felt, that I have the gift of connecting with other people. And so I was 22 or 23, and to be a recruiter and to be able to connect with college graduates and talk to them about what their life could be like was just sort of a special and magical thing. And it grew from there.
Yeah. Well, I can feel that now. We've known each other for about 10 minutes. And I feel like we've known each other for a long time because you have so much energy and you're so open. You're completely an open book and you're just really excited about what you do. And then that immediately just sort of makes people feel comfortable. They're much more willing to tell you things. And I think so after 10 minutes, I can definitely see why that makes you effective. So well done for that. And that's just it's inbuilt in you. You can't teach someone that. I think that just seems like part of your personality and who you are. So
I will say that, to me, the most important thing in the entire world is relationships. And I recently posted on LinkedIn that your network is your net worth. And
I'm going to steal that.
I don't think there's anything. I want to get it printed on t-shirts and buttons, because it really is, to me, I think it's everything that I stand for. I care so much about other people and building relationships and helping people find the best within themselves and manage relationships with other people. And so to me, it's almost a gift that the HR field was blossoming into what it is today, just when I was starting my career, because it gave me a perfect place to fit into the business world.
Mm-hmm. It's true. You couldn't have chosen a better time from where even from when I started, 10 years ago, where HR is now is completely different. When I started, it was completely administrative. It was, it was payroll. It was obviously recruitment as well, but the word strategic was never aligned with HR, if you get what I mean, and where we are now. So it's been a pretty amazing journey. So throughout your career, what really sort of occupied your mind on a day-to-day basis then, when you became a leader of these organizations and you developed to where you are now? What really occupied your mind?
I would say there's sort of two things that have always occupied my mind. The first is my team. When I think about what kind of HR leader I've wanted to be, I've always thought about your favorite airline attendant who says, you need to put on your own oxygen mask before you help the person next to you. And I have always felt that way about being an HR leader, which is, if we don't take a moment to be sure that our own HR teams are taken care of, that we are thinking about them and growing them and helping them be effective HR leaders, then we're missing the boat. Because no matter where you are, there are always going to be fewer HR business partners. The ratio is smaller than the business that we support. And so if our people are well-fed, well-groomed, and happy in their jobs, then we will be able to provide excellent support to the business. So number one for me, it's always been my team that occupies my mind. Mm-hmm. Second thing that occupies my mind is what you just said, which is how much the HR field has changed in the 20-something years that I've been in it. When I started, there really were only two sort of areas of HR to go into. One was the administrative side, so sort of the payroll, the benefits, the compensation, or recruiting.
Yeah.
And having watched this talent role, organization effectiveness, focus on culture, engagement, to see this all become more and more important, and actually to watch it go from being something that HR was driving and trying to explain and prove to the business, to where it is today, which is actually a true business initiative, has been, to me, magnificent. And I don't think we're done watching this change.
No. Mm.
So I think those are sort of the two things that are constantly moving through my head.
Mm-hmm. And out of those areas, what would you say is, of course, you're responsible for all of those areas. I'm sure they're all sort of passionate areas of yours, but what would you say is your area of expertise?
I think the area would be driving employee engagement. And I think that comes from both an innate understanding and passion to the subject, and also amazing opportunities I've had in my career to be trained in the subject area. I have had the amazing opportunity to partner with companies, one being the Gallup organization, which I think is phenomenal. I subscribe very much to their strength-based organization. I've had the opportunity to be certified as a strengths performance coach, both for teams and for executives. And I've gone through extensive training on their engagement model. I've also worked with many other companies on their engagement model as well. One of the most exciting roles I've had in my career was the opportunity to begin and lead the organization development department for a large fashion business that I was running at the time. And I had the opportunity to be in charge of the engagement survey for the company in 11 countries and 39 languages.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome. And so we got to figure out how the same questions would apply in multiple cultures under multiple leadership models in different places. And then when results came back, we had the opportunity to work with those leaders and figure out, well, how do you take results and have thoughtful strategies around engagement for a group in a Pennsylvania warehouse as compared to a group in a Hong Kong office building. And so I've had the chance to talk about the subject on some panels and at conferences, and I just care tremendously about employee engagement.
Yeah. So what's one thing around employee engagement that HR leaders don't know, or they're just not paying enough attention to?
There's a lot. I think the tie that has come out, or that we're learning more about, between motivation and engagement is, I think, a really important factor. I think many companies today are doing a great job using employee engagement surveys that is often administered by the HR team. It's really the what do you do with the results when you get them back piece. And my belief is that an action meeting isn't nearly enough. What I have been working to do myself as an HR leader is to learn more about what motivates each person individually, and to become an individualizer as an HR partner and also as a people leader helps a person to actually tap into the engagement factors for their team, which will help us retain people over time.
Mm-hmm. So what's some actionable steps that we can take to sort of get closer to that?
I'm glad you asked the question, because it is the easiest thing in the entire world. I did a little study myself in a company that I worked for. When I started with a new client group, I sat down and had one-on-one meetings with the top 50 leaders in the organization. I got to know them and I built rapport with them. And at the end, I asked each person one question, and you won't believe what the question is.
What motivates you? It's so funny because I had a podcast yesterday around motivation, which I just published, and it's sometimes the most simple. So people companies seem to overcomplicate these things, and even when I first became a leader, maybe it was just I was like, well, let me just ask my team what they want, and then create a program around what they want. And no one trained me to do that. It just made sense because I always had my own targets on my screen. I used to stick things on there of what I wanted to achieve in the year, whether it was a holiday or a house at the time and stuff like that. And I just did the same thing for my team. And they were all engaged because it's all walking towards whether they wanted to promotion, or whether they wanted to stay in that role but increase their salary maybe, or they want to go on a nice holiday. Sometimes it's I want to go out for a nice meal once a month. It gives you something so small, but it's always individual it's always different and to the individual. So yeah.
Well, I give you huge kudos, Chris, because I met, as I said, with those top 50 leaders, and you're not going to believe this. This was a group of seasoned, talented executives, and guess how many people
I don't want to know
had been asked the question before?
4 in 10? 0. Really?
Not one person had been asked.
Well, how do they know then what motivates their team without asking them?
I asked them directly. I said, what motivates you?
Oh, they hadn't even been asked it themselves. So that's probably one of the reasons, because I think I was quite lucky that my director at the time did ask me that question.
Once someone asks you, it really changes the game, because you realize everyone is motivated by something different, and that motivator changes constantly.
Yeah, I did it in a weekly meeting. I had a one-on-one every week, and I would ask that question in there every single week, and it did change. It did change.
You're on to something.
Yeah, it did. It's true. And that's same when you could do, I think that links in with the performance review as well. Because you ask people at the beginning of the year, what do you want to achieve? And you do your performance review, and we just wait a whole year until you revisit that. And it completely changes the person's needs in terms of how they need to develop change, their goals change, even the business needs of that individual change as well. So, and these things are things that you can immediately change, right? It's not something it's not rocket science. You don't need to.
We are in the process here at Macy's of actually digging into that issue specifically, which is this concept of moving away from the once a year annual review and moving to a continuous feedback model, because I can't think of a single person I've ever worked with whose goals on January 1st are the same as what they ended up doing, accomplishing, or working toward by the end of the year. It seems impossible in today's day and age.
Yeah, same with the business. The business needs change.
Exactly.
As well, and the individual's needs, and people wonder why there's a misalignment at the end. And Yeah, and also it means that more importantly, I think it means that the managers then engage with their team more.
That's right.
Rather than, in my company, it literally was, do you speak to your manager once a year, and then for the rest of the year, you're just one of 20 people on the sales floor, and that you don't really feel, motivated or engaged. It's the word, as you said, as well. So very interesting, very interesting. Could you share? Obviously, you've been at multiple organizations. I'm sure you've had very amazing experiences at all of these companies. But what's one sort of project or transformation you've been through that stands out to you that you're most proud of?
I have been so lucky in my career. I have worked for so many smart people, and I've worked on so many challenging projects. And so it's such a tough question. I think probably a recent challenge that I got to be a part of and I learned a ton is the reason that I joined the company I'm at today, which is Macy's. I was recruited to come in and help with our omni-channel reorganization. So leading up to that time, the organization, obviously a huge successful retail company, was functioning very much in silos, oftentimes even with different P&Ls, et cetera. And as the market was changing and retailers were becoming more omni-channel, which means being able to sell and access on multiple, okay, so we all know this. Macy's needed to do this. Sorry, we're having earbud challenges today.
That's all right.
And so I was actually recruited to the organization to help partner with the Macy's leadership team and some outside consultants that we were working with to put this together. It was a 2-year project. I came in at about the 50-yard line when I joined the organization, and they had put together what the future business operating model would be. And I was brought in at the time that we were going to put together a human capital strategy to match the business strategy. And so I got to be a part of figuring out how we would structure an organization to help meet these business goals, what that change process would look like. We developed our own proprietary talent and selection process that all of our leaders were involved in. We went through legal review, we drafted job descriptions, and figured the whole thing out. What I think was really exciting about it was the after work that we got to be involved with as well. So 2 years leading up to a big announcement that we were going to change and reshape the organization. But I also had the chance to be involved in the communication strategy, the communication execution, all of the culture building work that followed, the implementation, and then the follow-up that we needed to do to help this organization get up and running for the first 6 months. So it is amazing for me now as I zoom back and look, but I was actually involved in putting together the structure that this company functions in today. And it was an amazing learning opportunity.
Wow. Sounds like it's a lot as well, the entire process as well. And I'm sure there were definitely some challenges on the way. What were some of the challenges that you faced in putting that together? I'm sure it wasn't all bells and whistles.
How long is the podcast?
Okay. I'll make the question easier. All right. What was the biggest challenge you faced and how did you overcome that? And then what was the results?
I think the biggest challenge in any organization restructure is ensuring that the goal stays at the end, and that every single conversation or decision being made is vetted against the goal. Certainly when it comes to changing a company and people's roles within the company, there are relationships and emotions and all kinds of important things that come up and play a role. And so keeping our target clear, sticking to it, being wary of people's feelings, experiences, and still making the best decision for the business, putting the best leaders where they need to be, was very important. And then another piece that I was passionate about, sort of going back to earlier piece in our conversation, is there were many people that were impacted negatively. Sure. And making sure that every single person who wasn't part of the Going Forward organization was treated with tremendous dignity and respect. And we did everything we could to communicate with them proactively, fairly, honestly, and swiftly. Yeah. And These are all things that I think are easy to say, and certainly as HR practitioners, we drive toward, but making it happen is very hard. It's very hard.
Hmm. This is a question I haven't asked anyone, so I'm going to ask yourself. How do you deal with that emotionally?
It's really hard. That's a great question. And
It's
I
not something
think
that I think spoken about enough.
I,
The
I
decisions that need to be made.
I'm glad that you asked that. It's a relevant question for me because I've spent the better of the past couple of years being involved in some of this change, and it is very hard for the HR people. When you're dealing with organization restructure and there are reductions on the team, people aren't excited to have that conversation with you. People always want to talk to their HR partner about their business and about scaling and growing and culture and engagement. But when the conversation is about going in the other direction, it's not always an easy conversation or a happy conversation. And sometimes the HR partner gets the raw end of the deal because they see the pain in other people. And then HR people have to stick through it and drive through it. And that's part of what we do. But we have to manage it ourselves. And it's really hard. So I would be lying if I told you there were nights that I haven't slept, or things that I've done in my personal life to help other people, connect with them, meet for coffee even when they're not part of the company, to review a resume or help make a connection. And that has been helpful to me, in knowing that at the end of the day, a big reason I came into this field was to connect with people. And sometimes connecting with people in the tough times is even more important than the hard times. A mentor of mine who I will always love and respect, her name is Carla Packer. And I'll never forget the very first time I was involved in a reduction in force many years ago. I came to her the day before and I was so nervous and I was so upset and worried. And she said to me, "I'm glad you feel that way, because as you stay in this field, if you ever get to a day that you don't feel that way,
Yeah.
you need to get out of the field." And I've repeated that brilliant advice over and over to HR executives that I've had a chance to work with. And I can tell you, whenever I'm involved in these conversations, my heart is breaking.
Mm. Yeah. As I was going to ask you for a piece of advice, and that was fantastic advice. You have to keep asking yourself that if you don't feel that way, then you've been doing it too long, maybe, or
Yeah.
yeah. If you've heard that so many times, I suppose it's only natural that you're going to feel that way. But it's something that people don't speak about a lot. I don't really hear many people talking about it, but I can hear it in the voices of some of the people I speak to on a daily basis as well. So I suppose you've got to have a support network around you too, right? Of people that have been through that challenge and know how it feels to do that as well. And as you said, the business is fully on board when it's great things and the business is growing, and then it seems that when it comes to this area, it's almost like you're alone on an island, and everyone else in the business seems to sort of just slowly back away. Would that be a fair analogy?
I mean, you can, at times, yes, and I think it depends on the leader, but you can understand. You can understand
Yeah,
why.
of
No,
course.
no one wants to talk about it. It's not the happy thing. It's not why anyone goes into business. But I
Hmm.
think you make a great point, which is HR teams, HR leaders need to create space for the HR people, because we are also going through it. And to be the person sitting across the desk from another person who's going to be losing a job is really a horrible, painful, difficult thing to do. And it doesn't matter how many times you've done it. At least for
Hmm.
me, it's never something I like to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, it's part of the role, right? You signed up for that. The only thing you can do is make sure you support that person in the best way you can, both inside and outside your organization. And but these decisions have to be made for the best for the business. So that's what you're there for. So
Yeah.
moving forward, we mentioned before the role of HRs is changed dramatically. What skills do you feel will be more important for a HR leader moving forward?
There's five that
It's
I think are.
five. Good. I like numbers because it means I can post it online.
Number one is relationship building. I think as we think about where HR is going, if you're not on the administrative side and you're going to be in the talent and organization or culture development side, if you cannot build strong, trusting, credible, authentic relationships, it's going to be harder. I think that as technology continues to grow and takes administrative tasks off of the plate of HR business partners, the soft skills become more and more important. So relationship building is number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and number 4. Understanding of talent, number 2. I think that the word talent is a magical word. It's an overused word, like the word strategy.
Sure.
People say all the time, oh, I'm here to do talent, or I want to talk about talent, or, I mean, it can be applied almost anywhere. I'd like to have talent for lunch. So what does talent mean? And I think that the greatest HR people in the future will be the ones who know how to acquire talent, attract talent, retain talent, motivate talent, there's that word again, and develop talent, because the war is on. And as I thought about in preparing for our conversation, what's different today from when I started in the workforce was it used to be that people were always trying to please the company or become involved with the company. But now it is much more of a balance.
True. It's so shifted, hasn't it? Massively.
It has shifted. And so if you don't really know if you don't really understand talent, you will lose it. So that's number 2. Number 3 is agility. Agility is all about knowing when you need to flex, when you need to change, knowing that what you set as a goal in January will not necessarily be the goal in December. It's knowing the moments when you go into a meeting with your business partner and you're there to deliver a very, very important HR initiative, and that business leader has something else going on that you might need to shift. And so I think HR leadership has really become about showing that you can move and you can dodge and you can move along with the business so that you stay with them as a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, bravery.
I like that one. Wasn't expecting that one, but I like it already.
Bravery is so important. The best HR executives in my mind are the ones who are not afraid to ask the hard question, not afraid to give the tough feedback to the person that nobody wants to give the feedback to, not afraid to try something that's a little bit different, and not afraid to fail. If we can't be brave, then it will be harder for us as HR leaders to push the business forward, because we need the business to be brave.
Mm-hmm. Before you go on to that one, many of the CHROs I've been speaking to recently, the most successful ones, they do say that. They say, for some of the hard, you have to be willing to lose your job. You have to be willing to lose your job to stand up for what you believe in and what's best. Even if it's a difficult conversation that needs to be had, you have to be willing to lose your job. So, which I found very, very thought-provoking and very powerful.
I couldn't agree more. We have chosen this field for a reason, and if we can't apply the same rules to ourselves, then we're not fulfilling our job. Number 5 is the desire to understand the business. At the end of the day, we have a talent strategy that we want to drive and lead, but if it doesn't align with what's happening in the business, and if you're not curious about the business that you're in, you lose the opportunity to be phenomenal. So those would be my 5.
Wow. I feel like I need to write. I'm gonna have to ask you to write those down. You need to know what you need to do. You need to promise me you're gonna do this. You got to promise before I ask you. Promise.
I almost promised.
You almost promised. You have to post that on LinkedIn.
Okay, I will.
Do it. Seriously. I think that's a great post.
I will. You have my word.
All right. If you don't do it, I'm going to do it. So, I'm going to. If you don't do it, I'm going to write it, and then I'm going to tag you in, or someone listening, guys. You're listening. If Jill doesn't post this on LinkedIn by the end of the month, then we're going to post it on there. Okay. So you're committed now. You're committed.
I am committed. I will post it for sure. And let's see how many people actually like it. We'll go from there and we'll see.
Well, you have one from me, guaranteed. So
I love it.
Similar path of what you've discussed. What effect do you feel that HR or technology is going to have on HR in the coming years? We've seen this rapid ascension of technology into HR. It's all everyone talks about at the moment. HR analytics, predictive, prescriptive. It's an area which is very new to the field. I think a lot of most functions have gone through, all of them actually, I think have gone through the digital transformation. Finance, sales went through their digital transformation. Marketing, they've gone through completely digital, ran by analytics. Now it seems it's the time of HR to go through this. What are your thoughts on that, and how are you preparing yourself and your team for this transformation?
I can talk sort of generally, and then I can actually bring it home and talk about what's happening here at our company. I think you've absolutely touched on it, which is HR used to have such a wide range of where HR executives could play a role. Today, with technology becoming so important and with people wanting to be able to do everything on their phone, technology is so important. And I sat in a meeting recently, it was so interesting. Who goes to a bank anymore, right? When's the last time you walked into a bank and you walked up to the teller and you said, hello, right? Hi, teller, how was your week?
That's true.
It just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
We do our banking on our phone. And when is the last time you went into an airport to purchase a ticket?
No one does that anyway, right?
Right? I don't even know if you can.
Can you do that?
I don't know.
I genuinely don't know if you can do that.
I don't know. But the point is, we are living in a society today where there's almost nothing that you can't do in the palm of your hand. And so HR is just lagging. It is absolutely expected and appropriate that organizations are moving to a place where you can check your payroll, look at your organization, pull up an organization chart, whatever it might be, through technology, which allows the business to move more quickly, which B, takes a ton of administrative work and extra phone calls off the desk of HR, and then allows HR people to really lean in on the topics where the business needs help. And that is to understand the roles, understand how those roles support the business, and then attract, motivate, develop that talent. So it will become more and more important and harder to find the best HR people.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. And I think it's also a platform that is so powerful for HR to be able to reach people on scale and engage with people. This is how people communicate, right? We have WhatsApp now and Facebook Messenger. People don't even call each other anymore.
No.
Or people do, but you know what I mean, right? Mainly it's like, oh, I sent you a text. I was like, okay, do I have to look at all texts now? But that's how things have changed, right? And, trying to get an employee to log in online, log into an internal intranet or whatever it may be, or there's a way they can just go into an app on their phone and check that. We know what's going to happen and how people can engage. I think another part as well, which I found recently, is the ability to connect different teams and people all over the world through the phone. Right? You can create, even some of the most successful HR leaders, their teams are on WhatsApp. And they know that there's people in India speaking with people in the US, and then collaboration opportunities are coming through that as well. So certainly some powerful things that we can do with that.
I think you make a great point. And so with people wanting to communicate more by text, and wanting to leverage technology, it actually puts more onus and pressure on one-on-one interactions that they need to be really impactful. Because if someone is going to actually sit with you, meet with you, take the time, it shouldn't be transactional. It should be quite strategic.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. But the other way around, though, is also the fact that people then try to avoid those conversations by just communicating via that. That's also very, very dangerous.
Yeah, I would call out my husband on that.
It is when he wants to get away with something, he'll send a text. But when it's a positive thing, he'll give you a call.
That's right.
That's
equally strategic.
That's true. Even things like chatbots, right? The power of having something like a chatbot that can be there all the time for employees to engage with and get all of that information. These are things that exist that can plug into current systems that companies can leverage to save huge amount of times and cost savings and provide a better employee experience for their employees in organizations. So I think we're just at the beginning of how this is really going to impact organizations. So you mentioned some of the work that you guys are doing within Macy's at the moment.
Yes, Macy's is actually in the process of going through this exact transformation. And so we are really augmenting what we call the associate support organization that will be just what you're saying, helping employees across the entire organization at all levels, across the stores, executive, logistics, populations, to get easy, quick access to information that they need, which will make it less necessary for HR business partners to be doing that work and allow the HR business partners to be leaning in and being involved in far more strategic culture, engagement, talent work. And
Hmm.
so a lot of the concepts that you're talking about today have been part of our everyday vernacular for the past year, and we are rolling it out as we speak. So it will be very interesting over the next 6 months to see what happens at this company as people learn to
Hmm.
move from face-to-face conversations to leveraging the new technology that we're putting in.
Yeah. Have you had to bring in new talent or skills into your team, or are you just basically training internally? What's been the focus there?
We've done both. So we've worked with external consultants. We have we brought in a new CHRO who is familiar with the model, and she's phenomenal and dynamic. And she is helping lead us through the change. And so we will see how it goes.
Fantastic. In terms of leadership, of course, it's a huge part of your impact in the business, which is your ability to communicate with the other leaders in the team, and of course, not just lead your own team, but also explain the work that you're doing in a language that the rest of the business can understand. So I think a big part of it is obviously making sure that you are communicating the success stories within the HR department with the rest of the business and engaging the team as well. What have you found to be sort of good ways of in your career of engaging the leadership team and making sure that you have that constant communication and trust?
The first meeting with anyone is the most important meeting. We learned years and years and years ago, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I think it was Head and Shoulders shampoo that taught this to us.
It's good. But you remembered it. It worked. That
I'll
brand,
never,
the guy that made that marketing, that advert, he did a good job. If you're listening,
that,
well done.
yeah, that guy, rock on, because I will never forget that you never get a second chance to make a
Did
first
you
impression.
buy some Head and Shoulders before we continue?
You know what? I didn't, but I think my dad may have used it. So good product. It smelled nice. It's good
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. Yeah, it's the power of advertising. Power of advertising.
It is
Oh, sorry.
amazing,
Sorry.
but no, it's stuck with me. And so I take a first meeting with any client very, very seriously in order to have the kind of relationship with a client that we all want to have, regardless of the business that we're in. I always think about the fact that the connection is either going to be there or not. And it's my job to try to find that connection. One of the things that I always do that's been sort of my maybe differentiating factor is in a first meeting, I often never talk about the business. I often talk about a person as a person, and I ask almost the same 5 questions to everyone. I say, Chris, it's so great to meet you. I'm very excited to have time with you. I would like to know, who are you? Who do you live with? Where do you live? Do you have a dog, cat, bird, or fish? What's the last movie you saw? What did you eat for breakfast today? Where did you buy what you're wearing, and why did you buy it? And if you weren't in the job that you're in today, what do you think you would do to make money?
I think there's a bit more than 5 there, Jill.
Okay, I'll take the feedback.
No. I like it. I like it. No, what if they don't have a pet or a fish?
A lot of people, a lot of people don't have fish anymore. It doesn't seem to be the thing.
Fish has gone out of fashion, isn't it? When I grew up, everyone had a fish.
Me too. I had great fish. I had fabulous fish, but I don't know anyone now that has a fish. I probably need to update that to not be a fish.
No problem.
But
that's very interesting. So it's really about taking the onus of the business and getting to understand them, right? Because they're human. You need to understand them and what they're about before you start talking about.
That's exactly right. I always say the CEO and the person that is helping to clean our offices, they're all people. And those people all have people that they love. They all have things that they want to do. They have goals, they have fears. And if I can get to know a person, if I can disarm and break down the barrier right away, I can become a really effective partner. And so the way I engage the business is to try to get to know a person. Human resources, I want to know the whole human. What brought you here? What are the things that you battle here and away from here? And that is not to say that as HR people, we should go into people's private personal business. There are some things I don't need to know, I don't want to know, but to have a full concept of who is sitting in the room with me will allow me to be a better partner. And then from there, I make a contract with the person I'm working with. I ask them, what are they looking for from me? What have they seen in the past that's been effective or not effective? And I promise people that I will always be candid, I will always be caring, and I will always be courageous.
Wow. Another LinkedIn post there. I feel like I'm plugging LinkedIn today. No, that was very interesting. And the reason I asked that question, I always ask that on the show, is that, again, the most successful leaders that I've sort of come across and spoken with over the years, and there's been thousands that I've had conversations with, are the ones that have those relationships internally, and they spend time in the first few months of their role, even the year, developing strong relationships. So when these tough times appear and you're going through these transformations and you have the full support and backing of the leadership team, that alone is one of the biggest drivers for success, and doing that. And so many people undervalue that. They stay insular within the HR department, and when these challenges times come, then all of a sudden they're reaching out to these people in organizations, and you just maybe don't have that trust. Everything's about, a lot of it's about trust, right? And building those relationships. So I think your approach is amazing. I'm definitely going to take that on board myself, and I'm sure many of the listeners have taken a lot away from that. So thank you for sharing that. Where you are today in your organization, where do you see the biggest opportunity for Macy's? Where do you feel that they can have the biggest impact, and where do you see the business opportunities there?
I think, for Macy's as a retailer, there's a large conversation about what needs to happen for retail.
Sure.
And I think that Macy's is in the midst of a very, very exciting turnaround. We've brought in a new president. We've brought in a new CHRO. We've brought in new digital leadership. We have Jeff Gannett as our CEO at the helm. And I think that we really are in the process of a huge turnaround. It's a big job. There's a lot of work to be done. Competition is really difficult out there. But I think unquestionably the biggest challenge for Macy's will be to get ourselves back to and ahead of where we are today. And I think that we should. There are some things about Macy's, particularly in the United States, that are undeniably us. When you think about Thanksgiving, you think about Macy's.
Yeah.
When you think about July 4th, you think about Macy's. And you'd be amazed at how many people see Macy's as really a brand that they feel love for, that they love Macy's. And in my experience working for the company for the past 4 years, I have never met someone who doesn't have a connection to Macy's. Either my aunt worked there, or I worked there in college, or I bought my prom dress there, or I bought my first, who knows? So, I mean, it is such an iconic brand. And so I think that's the organization challenge. From an HR perspective, I think that as we continue to go through this process, and as we continue to reorganize and reshape human resources, and the company continues to move through this period of time, we need to be hawks about change, communication, and change management. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the most important thing for us to be focusing on, and it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah. I can add one to your list before, by the way, is my wife went to New York a few weeks ago, and you know what she said to me? She went, "I went to Macy's."
Oh, I wish she had called me.
So she only went this week. She got back 2 weeks ago, and she said to me, "I went to Macy's." Because I said to her, "You're coming on the show." She went, "Guess what? I went to Macy's," and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be speaking to the."
What did she buy?
I don't know what she bought. She spent all my money. That's all I know. That's.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope she had a phenomenal experience.
She did. She loved. She went obviously because it was Christmas. She went out there, just before, was it just after Christmas? No, just before Christmas. Sorry, it's quite a while ago now. The weeks have just blurred in since we got back, and it was obviously I think it was snowing out there, the Christmas, everything like that. So she really enjoyed it. She was like, the lights were amazing.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, so she enjoyed that. So yeah, but the fact that people even in the UK, they know Macy's as a brand. And, you know, I've never even been to the store before, but I know the brand and I know how people, the love people have for the brand, and that's built over the years. And you guys, so yeah, pretty amazing. Well, that leads us quite nicely onto the quick fire round, where I'm going to ask you 5 questions and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
Oh boy. Okay.
What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a senior HR leader?
Understanding the audience all the time. Sometimes I have moved faster than someone is ready to move. I'm really energetic. I like to go quickly. And sometimes I missed the signs and needed to go back again or take a slower approach. And that was something I really had to work on.
Fantastic. What's the best piece of business advice that you ever received?
Go to the teddy bear picnic.
Wow, that you need to explain a bit more than 30 seconds for that one. What's that?
When I was younger in my career, I was invited to a meeting with the president of the division I was supporting. And that meeting happened to conflict with my 2-year-old daughter's teddy bear picnic. And I was just traumatized. And I went and sat down with a mentor of mine. And I said, I don't know what to do. I have this opportunity to go talk about the sales results and the organization structure with the president, but it's the teddy bear picnic. And I'll never forget her. And she said to me, Jill, go to the teddy bear picnic, because 10 years from now, you'll look back. You won't have a clue what that meeting was about, but you'll always remember the teddy bear picnic.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful. Hopefully I'll have one soon, a pet teddy bear picnic, and we'll see what happens.
Right, yeah.
What's one book you'd recommend to our audience, and why?
I would recommend Now Discover Your Strengths by Buckingham and Clifton. It is a Gallup book, and it is the book that talks about strength finders. And then I believe it has a code inside it that allows the reader to take the strength finder assessment and learn more about the strengths and things that drive that person to be phenomenal and special and unique in their own way.
Fantastic. What is it you took away from it?
Oh, I have taken the assessment multiple times, and I know my strengths very well. And I think that once we know what it is that we do well, we should seek out in life as many places to go and do and be the things that we know we do best.
Great. Fantastic. Could you share one internet resource that you use to keep up to date with current events or network and benchmark?
The answer, as I thought through all the places that I go, it's LinkedIn.
It's LinkedIn.
It's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where you go for knowledge articles, for networking, for expertise, to connect with people. And I have found that over time, as LinkedIn has become better and better, almost everything I want to find, LinkedIn is a great portal to go find it. And so I think it's easy and simple and user-friendly, and it's a great place to find everybody.
Before we found each other.
We did, see? It's great.
So it works. It works. Fantastic. Well, look, you've given us some great actionable advice, and I know our members will be a lot better off for it. Before we wrap up, 2 things. One, what is one parting piece of guidance for our members? And if there's one message you can give to other HR leaders out there, what would that be?
My best advice would be to try to create for yourself and others a we can if environment. And a we can if environment is a place where nothing is impossible and everyone is facing forward and positive. And I learned this when I worked with an amazing, brilliant leader. She felt like the smartest person in the room, and oftentimes she was. But the problem was, no matter what someone brought to her, she said, well, we can't because. We can't because we've tried it before, or we can't because of the budget. And we learned together that if you take I can't because and you just turn it a little bit and you turn it into we can if, the whole world changes. And so I have worked with this and a lot of people, and I say to people all the time, go jump out the window. And the answer there would be, I can't because I'll die. But if you turn it into a we can if, and I say go jump out the window, I can if you help me grow wings. And
Mm.
so if you think about using we can if, there really isn't anything we can't accomplish.
Wow, that's very just. I'm going to be using that now. And for you personally, I know that you're going to be on your own new journey soon, right?
I
You
am.
are.
I am.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I will be moving on from Macy's after an incredible 4 years, and I'm excited to see what it brings. I have a lot of exciting interests and things on the horizon, and I'm looking for the best place for me to go and do what I love to do. So I'm really
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
amazing. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you're going to take a lot of what you've learned there, and it's been a great experience. And the only problem now, this is the biggest problem. All of the people listening to this podcast are going to reach out to you. So
Oh.
I'm apologizing in advance because your LinkedIn inbox is going to have a lot of messages, have a lot of messages in there now. There's a war on talent, as you said earlier. So there's a war on talent. So there's going to be a lot of people. Don't blame me. All right. I'm just putting the disclaimer there now. Guys, you heard it here first. So make sure you reach out. Well, look, thank you very much. Genuinely, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm really happy that we found time to speak.
Well,
Genuinely.
Chris, you told me your story before we started the webcast, and I have to say that I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And when I started watching your podcast and seeing what my other colleagues are doing and learning from them, you have given us such an amazing place to connect and learn from one another. And you are so engaging, and I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to use it as a testimonial now. Oh, well, look, I wish you all the best the next week, and I'll see you soon because I'll definitely be coming out to you guys and saying hello. So you have to give me a tour around.
I can't wait. I look forward to it.
Speak soon.